Welcome to Who's Number One. I'm Trey Wingill. It is the mocking chant of derision you hear at college basketball games. Overrated. Let's face it, it's one of the unkindest brands you can burn into an athlete or a team or an event or an award because it says that they've somehow fallen short of all those grand expectations. They never quite measured up to the hype. But there is some consolation in being overrated, and it's this. To be a nothing, you got to have been a something first. And if you're going to be a bust, at least you know there was a time when you were seen as a golden child. Which brings us to today's show. The 20 most overrated as selected by ESPN Classic. Overrated what, you ask? Relax. We'll explain. Starting now.
Greg has always said that his main motivation is failure. To have even the word failure in your mind at any time when you're pursuing a goal, that's a negative.
20.
It's not that Greg Norman didn't win his share of golf tournaments. It's not that he wasn't number one in the world for 6 years. It's that when he lost, it was often a final round flameout or as the victim of someone's kissed by an angel shot.
Greg Norman is a guy that had a can't-miss tag, and he missed.
It just appears to me that Greg Norman is a far better player than he allowed himself to be at times coming down the stretch.
Greg was so good for a while, he truly believed that he could do some of these Superman-type things, and it kind of got up him and bit him in the butt.
That is the shot of Bob Quay out of the bunker. It's in the hole! It's in the hole!
This is the first of the disasters that ever hit Greg Norman, who was the unluckiest athlete of my time.
All these incredible things kept happening to him. I mean, these guys beat him with shots that, nobody ever made before or since.
Whoever could have come out of nowhere to beat Norman was going to. Who next was going to beat Norman, Was it the guy running the Haagen-Dazs cart? Let's let him beat Norman.
He'll be remembered more for his Saturday Slam where he led the Masters, the U.S. Open, the British Open, the PGA, the third round of all those tournaments, and then only cashed in on the one at the British Open.
Yes, well done. He's done it at last. Greg Norman, the champion for 1986.
Greg Norman, I think, is one of the greatest golfers of his generation. Sadly, just could not get his game together to win 7 or 8 majors.
0 for 4 in this opening day.
Totally overrated. And he finally proved it when he left Boston. Only when he left Boston, the Red Sox won the championship. That is not a coincidence.
The Fenway faithful embraced Nomar Garciaparra, certain he would be the one to reverse the curse. But the slick shortstop, nagged by injuries, never did. The Red Sox finally traded him and then proceeded to win the World Series for the first time in 86 years.
It depends which Nomar you're talking about. The Nomar of 99 looked to me like a surefire Hall of Famer. But the injuries he's had since then, I think, have knocked him off that track.
Just as a hitter, I thought he was lethal, and I thought that team fed off him at his peak and prime.
A bit overrated because he started getting hurt. I have no idea who he is right now.
He has not been able to stand up physically over the course of years as a Derek Jeter or Alex Rodriguez or even an Omar Vizquel.
6 years ago, you asked me this question, no. Yes, right now, a bit overrated.
Mike Keenan, to put it bluntly, a caustic tyrant, was the drought breaker for New York, coaching the Rangers to the championship in 1994. 4 teams hired him to repeat that feat. They're still waiting.
Bounced around way too much. He almost seemed to be a thing in the butt, a hot potato, somebody who was hard to handle.
Published reports in Vancouver say Mike Keenan is as good as gone.
Florida firing Coach Mike Keenan just 15 skates into the season. On Thursday, the St. Louis Blues agreed. They fired Mike Keenan as coach and GM.
Mike Keenan has a brilliant mind, but is a horrible people person. He has no idea how to deal with players, how to handle players. So for all his knowledge of hockey, all he produces is controversy and anger and dissension on teams.
Fiery temper, which can turn you off, but if you really want something badly enough, Keenan's the right guy.
He won a Stanley Cup. So when you win a championship, it's hard to call you overrated.
7.
Fabulous career, but in his last couple of big fights, he hasn't gone through that next step to finish the fight off. The great ones close the show.
17.
Oscar De La Hoya makes the girls sigh and opponents cry. He won his first 31 fights, but then he lost 4 title bouts, and now struggles to be remembered as more than just a box office pretty boy.
Good fighter, not great fighter. You know, he's not Marvin Hagler, he's not Tommy Hearns, he's not Sugar Ray Leonard.
I've always thought that Oscar enjoyed being a celebrity more than he enjoyed being a fighter, because celebrity brought him everything he loved. The women, the invitations to the golf courses, the nightclubs.
You guys sell tickets. That's what boxing's all about, selling tickets.
Unbelievable box office attraction. Nothing like it south of the heavyweight division in history. He became Ricky Martin of boxing.
Was marketed well, fought well, but he was fighting against inferior fighters.
I have nothing to prove. I've won 6 world titles in 5 different weight classes. What else do I have to prove?
The final chapter hasn't been written, but no matter what, I believe it'll be a legacy of we're not quite sure how good Oscar De La Hoya could have been.
16.
There was a definite golf boom following that 97 runaway Masters victory by Tiger Woods.
Tiger Woods, please! Oh, my God!
Back up. Come on, pull the rope.
Give me
some more room. Give him some room. Back up.
It was an absolute Tiger-fueled explosion.
It was supposed to be a sonic boom after Tiger Woods destroyed the Masters field in 1997. Woods was going to be the game's Pied Piper, but if many joined the parade initially, few stayed in it, and that boom went bust.
There's no golf boom. There's no the number of golf rounds played in 2004 was fewer than they were played in 2000. It's a piece of marketing nonsense.
Golf in this country is dying. The participation rates are falling. Courses are getting plowed up and turned into housing tracks.
Anybody who plays golf now loves golf. Nobody plays golf now because they like Tiger Woods.
We're no longer in a golf boom. But I don't think it was overrated when Tiger did that at Augusta in '97. Golf became almost the 4th major sport.
I think equipment's the worst it's ever been. Not one amateur out there knows which club's good for him. It's just terrible.
People pay $700 or $800 for a golf club. This driver will make you into a better person.
And that was all inspired by Tiger Woods. How far can you hit the ball? And I don't know that we've seen the end of that.
Oh, no, nonsense, of course. You can have the most wonderful clubs in the world. If you can't play, they're no good to you.
Even if you look at the quote-unquote Tiger impact, and we still don't see any other blacks on the PGA Tour, then yeah, I think you can say the golf boom is overrated.
When it comes to who's number one, everyone has an opinion. Some say it's the cat with the best stats, others say it's the one who did the most winning. So we're here to bring all debates to an ending, so stay tuned. I promise, we'll be back pretty soon. Underdogs taking it all. Legends taking the fall. Heroes taking the ball. And history recording it all. Welcome back to Who's Number One.
15.
Once it was the most glorious summoning call in sports. Gentlemen, start your engines. But them good old boys have usurped the auto racing spotlight, and the Indy 500 now nothing but a shadow of its former ear-shattering self.
Obviously, the way the race has broken down in the last 6 or 7 years with the split that they've had, it really is overrated now. No longer a big sporting event.
They start bringing in NASCAR, and it's like, well, it's not a once-a-year event anymore. There's something going on at the track.
It stinks. It's loud. It takes forever. You never know who's leading.
Now Mears goes to the outside, and Rick Mears takes the lead.
Just unbelievable racing.
It's just not the same as when it was anybody who's anybody in open car racing wants to race at Indy.
It's a great American spectacle, but now, in our time, this day and age, it's still a great event, but it's overrated.
It's basically a chance for 100,000 Hoosiers to go to an infield and drink some beers. And in the end, that's the funniest thing of all. People spend 12 hours drinking beers, and when it ends, what does the winner get? A glass of milk.
That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. For one day a year, Indianapolis is a complete sewer.
Joe Namath. Joe Namath, who likes girls.
Joe Namath is both overrated and underrated. As far as a marketing force and a guy who was the vibrant icon of the 60s, absolutely. As a player, that was such a short window, and so in that regard, I find him a little overrated.
Hey, who didn't want to be Broadway Joe? Guarantee the boldest sort of upset, as he did for Super Bowl III, and then deliver. Joe Namath is a Hall of Famer, but he's remembered more for his high-living, hard-charging ways.
It was like traveling with a rock star. He just was a magnet attracting people, and mostly young people. And talk about excitement and energy. Wow.
He's kind of the original Dennis Rodman, Terrell Owens, the original marketing publicity guy, but all-time great football player, absolutely not. So, yeah, he's overrated.
He's dissed now because his numbers don't measure up. It shouldn't be just about numbers. It should be about influence. Joe Willie Namath changed the course of professional football as we know it.
The New York Jets are the world champions.
Joe Namath is not the greatest quarterback to ever play football, but Joe may have played the most important game to ever be played in football.
He dared to guarantee a victory, and he backed it up. And for that alone, I can't even imagine him being overrated.
This guy had one of the greatest arms and also one of the greatest bravados. I mean, this guy turned AFL into the NFL. His guarantee, his flair, his popularity, all those things. This guy was a true Hall of Famer and not overrated.
13.
Mike Holmgren did some great things with the Green Bay Packers, brought them back to prominence. But since he's been in Seattle, he's just been, at best, an average coach.
On the fabled frozen tundra, Mike Holmgren restored the aura and the Lombardi Trophy to the Green Bay Packers. So when he went to Seattle, the flock of Seahawks expected the same kind of delivery. So far, no dice.
A classic example of a guy who has too much power. I mean, once he had both hats, he couldn't handle it. When he had Ron Wolf in Green Bay, he's got a street named after him in Green Bay, and he was a world championship coach.
He was virtually a product of two human beings, and that was Brett Favre's gunslinging at his peak and Reggie White's unblockability at his peak. Those two people made him a hero, made him millions of dollars. Terribly overrated.
Wow. Oh, it means so much to my identity as an American that my rich, pampered golfers can beat the rich, pampered golfers of Europe. Wow, that brings out my patriotism.
Oh, my. Unbelievable. My goodness. What a comeback right in the heart.
Oh, please, United States. Rah, rah, rah. Go, rich, pampered golfers. Show how superior our country is. I could not be less interested in the Ryder Cup.
12. Every 2 years, golfers from the United States and Europe take 10 paces, turn, and fire their putters. The winner gets the Ryder Cup. Hardly anyone used to care, and then patriotism showed its ugly side. And a lot of people still don't care.
It's overrated because it is an exhibition. And the reason it's been juiced up to become the Super Bowl of golf is because the PGA of America makes a ton of money off it.
It's gotten so commercial. The American public wasn't even interested in it until about 10 years ago, and now it's like life or death.
I think it may be overrated to the American golfer right now that competes in it. I mean, in Europe, it's not overrated.
Harrington adds the final exclamation point to a European domination.
The Ryder Cup has become an every 2-year occasion for the United States to get kicked in the teeth by scruffy Europeans.
The American golfers always act like self-centered jerks, and the Europeans actually bond and exceed the sum of their parts and win.
I remember watching Sergio run around the greens, jumping up in the air, looked like he was going to slam dunk on some holes.
Garcia getting a little airtime.
It's become rude, crude, and it's exaggerated a lot by the press.
The Ryder Cup brings out emotions in players that you just have to brush off as being just that 1 week.
It's great golf, and match play is an exciting format, but I think it's overrated.
11. Left center field.
Grissom on the run. The team of the 90s has its world championship.
11. Although they're not the Buffalo Bills because they have won one, you certainly can make an argument that the Braves needed another one to sort of validate their greatness in the 90s.
In the summer, the grass would turn green and the Braves would win. And in the autumn, the grass would die, and so would the Braves. Look, they won their division every season from 1991 to 2005, but they won the World Series only once.
When you do what they've done for that period of time, it's hard to say you're overrated.
Overrated? Because you've got to seal the deal. They only did it one time.
Other thing about the Braves, they've been eliminated so many times in the postseason at home.
You don't see a sold-out stadium there. The fans aren't good baseball fans.
They win every year, but you know they're not going to win at all. I mean, I think they're the biggest teasers in sports.
I look at their starting pitching and think, as great as they were in the regular season, they could have been and should have been better in postseason play.
It's sit back and have a beer time. Relax in your chair time. We'll be right back. Like your hairline.
Welcome back to Who's Number One. In this edition, we're counting down the 20 most overrated athletes, teams, events, and awards of all time. We're at the halfway mark, so let's recap. Greg Norman.
19.
Nomar Garciaparra.
8.
Mike Keenan.
7.
Oscar de la Hoya.
6.
The Golf Boom.
6.
The Indianapolis 500.
4.
Joe Namath.
13.
Mike Holmgren.
12.
The Ryder Cup.
11.
The Atlanta Braves. Okay, pit stop over. We're back on the road to number one.
10.
Mookie hit a slow grounder down the first baseline. Went over and bent over to get the ball, and it just had nothing but air, you know.
Little roller up along first. Behind the bag. It gets through Buckner. Here comes Knight, and the Mets win it.
I felt sorry for him last fall when they finally win. Now suddenly, okay, Buckner's off the hook now. No, he never should have been on the hook to begin with. Overrated. Get over it.
10.
Game 6, 1986 World Series. Dave Henderson's 10th inning leadoff homer helps Boston take a 2-run lead over the Mets.
They are now 1 out away from a World Series championship.
Pretty sad at the time. We were pretty down. And somebody said, let's put on some rally football helmets on.
Line into left field. Base hit to Carter, and the Mets are still alive.
And all of a sudden, these things start to transpire.
Next thing you know, bang, bang.
You win as a team and you lose as a team, which is an old cliche, so a lot of pieces did not fall into place in that inning.
The pitch. Gets away! Gets away! Tie game! Tie game!
And of course you have the ball through Buckner's legs, and that's the focal point.
Little roller up along first. Behind the bag. It gets through Buckner.
Some people say he wasn't going to beat Mookie Wilson to the bag anyway. The game was tied at that point anyway. I still think, though, it is a calamitous mistake that will never be forgotten, and for that reason, I don't think it's overrated.
It continued the Boston curse. It haunted that city for years. No, that's not overrated at all.
A lot of people remember it. A lot of people talk about it. And there's players that are better than me that, you know, most people don't even know who they are. People know who I am.
9.
Maybe I'm different than most people. I just think your coach should know the names of his players.
One of the most overrated people who ever walked through the door of the NFL.
9.
Steve Spurrier swaggered into the NFL from Florida, only to learn there's a big difference between Saturday football and Sunday football. He brought his fun and gun offense to the Redskins, but after 2 losing seasons, retreated for South Carolina.
Steve Spurrier may go down as one of the most overrated coaches to come into the NFL because what he thought, like some college guys, that his system can work in the NFL, and it simply doesn't.
His solution to protection problems with his offense was to tell his offensive line coach, just block him up, block him up.
He got there, and I don't think he understood the rule. I think he thought it was his show, and it was he was down, and it was Mr. Snyder's show. And it was just a bad fit from the beginning.
Spurrier thought he could bring his scheme from Florida in this wide-open passing game, but there were no Vanderbilts on the schedule.
I wonder to this day how he's been such a great college football coach, and I can only assume it's because he just has out-talented people.
Steve Spurrier would never be overrated solely because he's the closest thing to Bear Bryant with a pulse in college football.
The University of Florida was not really on the football map until he got there.
He more than likely will turn South Carolina into something it's never been.
Despite his meltdown in the NFL, most people know how good a college football coach he is. What the NFL did is it separated Spurrier from football coach to college football coach.
Now let's go to the envelopes and see who the big winner is today.
The epitome of overrated is anything related to the NBA's draft lottery.
The NBA Draft Lottery, a souped-up version of bingo, the future of franchises at the mercy of ping pong balls. The only guarantee is that the high picks come with no guarantees.
It used to be Jordan, Ewing. You knew who was coming out of school. You knew who was going to be in the lottery. It just doesn't have kind of that lure where you're able to watch them from college where they develop and learn skills, and I definitely think it's overrated.
The Washington Wizards select Kwame Brown.
In recent years, it hasn't had the same impact because now you're drafting high school players like Kwame Brown, and you don't know what you're getting.
And with the influx of foreign players, you're like, who? You don't know who they are.
The Cleveland Cavaliers select Sagana Joe.
As they continue to come out early and high scorers and grade scorers go into the NBA, then it loses something.
It ain't overrated if your team's in it and there's an Akeem Olajuwon or a Shaquille O'Neal out there.
The actual draft lottery was a good thing. It kept teams from finishing the year and trying to lose games. But the draft lottery program is maybe the worst thing on television outside of The Apprentice.
Don't flinch, don't move an inch, don't even make a sound. We'll be back like center field at the Polo Ground. Moving barbershop wars about who's the number one this and who's the number one that. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back.
Seven.
Here comes Michael Jordan for his third and final dunk.
Oh, I love it. That is Air Jordan at his best.
7.
It used to be great. It used to be everybody wanted to be in it. It was a marquee event. And now it's like, it's more marquee not to be in it.
Hey, remember when MJ and Dominique went cloud hopping? When Doc Dipsy Dude? Those were the days, my friend. But now, the marquee names skip the NBA Slam Dunk Contest, and what used to be a glorious slam spectacle is just cold soup.
Back in the days when you had Michael Jordan, Dominique Wilkins, it was a happening. It was an event.
When the art of the dunk was first shining through in this country, it was fun to watch. It was exhilarating to watch.
Do or die right here.
After that, it deteriorated because the best players wouldn't go near it, didn't have any use for it, and it's now just become something to fill up a long weekend.
The slam dunk contest is the dumbest thing in sports. The NBA should get rid of it. Everybody can slam dunk now. It's boring. There isn't anything more they can do.
There's only so many dunks that you can see. So many times you can see a player blindfolded.
When you have no names, even though they may do nice dunks, when you have guys that most fans don't know about, it's not as exciting.
Great contest would be an 18-foot jump shot contest. How about that? They couldn't have that because nobody in the NBA can do that. Everybody can dunk.
Hopefully it can get back to that prime time when we used to see the best dunkers compete in it.
inside with Phelps on him. Weber in the corner. And now he's called what? Michigan can't take a timeout. They don't have a timeout.
When he called the infamous timeout at the end of that game, initially you would think that was just an aberration. But what he did at Michigan was not an aberration. That was the essence of who he is as a player. He doesn't want the ball in the clutch. He'll choke in the clutch.
Chris Webber starred with Michigan's Fab Five, and for his NBA career is averaging 22 points and 10 boards. Yet the perception is of a player who runs from the spotlight at crunch time.
Chris Webber was recognized from the 9th grade on as being a phenom.
I remember people saying that this guy was going to be the next evolution in terms of power forward.
Webber has a triple-double.
He was on the level of a Shaquille O'Neal, someone that would be the backbone of the team and be a guy that won a lot of championships, and it hasn't happened.
He is as gifted as any player except Michael Jordan I've ever seen.
Yeah, he could turn the crowd off.
But under pressure, when the heat is on, he does not want the basketball in his hands.
He had the Kings on the brink of a championship. Something always happens to Chris Webber. NCAA title game, he calls it a timeout. I mean, there's something missing there. Something in the gene pool is missing.
I don't care how many numbers he puts up. Until I see some rings on his fingers, I think he's overrated.
He needs to overcome that and do something big time down the stretch in a meaningful playoff game for him to overcome that tag.
5. We're going to get him on a run. We're going to go. And we aren't going to stop until we go that goal line.
Knute Rockne's fevered exhortations are but a faded soundtrack now. And the days when Ara Parseghian and Lou Holtz shook down the thunder are long gone.
College kids today, they don't know what Ara Parseghian did. They're not that embraced with what Lou Holtz accomplished.
There's only one way you get respect, and that's by looking somebody in the eye for 60 minutes and say, hey, baby, here I am now.
If you were born in the 80s, you're looking at Notre Dame and you're going, they're on NBC, but what else they got?
Notre Dame football overrated, and you're talking about a kid who used to write Notre Dame on his books.
It's a program with plenty of Heismans, legends, and ghosts. But come on, you've got to uphold your tradition.
Let's go!
What they don't have is that charisma. They don't have that recruiting ability that they had before.
Well, I tell you, you talk about something that they haven't seen at Notre Dame ever in the history.
It's been almost 2 decades now since they've won a bowl game.
Kids today want to play for championships, multiple championships.
They've got a good coach now in Charlie Weiss who may change a little bit, but I don't see them getting that funnel of talent where every kid, Catholic or non-Catholic, wanted to go to Notre Dame in the past.
Not the powerhouse program it once was.
Clearly overrated. Dramatically overrated.
Overrated. And I don't know why.
If being number one is your life's dream occupation, then hopefully you've got a couple extra doses of dedication. Because the greats will tell you with no hesitation that you don't win it in the game, you win it in the preparation. Who's number one?
The Quebec Nordiques are very proud to select Eric Lindros.
4.
Quebec may have drafted him, but Philadelphia is where Eric Lindros went. Stanley Cups were supposed to follow. That didn't happen. Touted as the next Gretzky, the next Lemieux, he was neither.
Because of the tremendous skills and size of Eric Lindros, you just saw so much potential out there.
He was just an amazing talent. It's Michael Jordan on ice. There is no way you could come away from the game and not say, man, that guy is the best player I have ever seen.
Getting in front, Lindros, and he's got a hat trick!
They used to call him the next because he was going to be the next Wayne Gretzky.
He's never really been able to understand why, when people embraced Wayne Gretzky so much, why they've never embraced him in that same way.
In the crusade of the big moment, Lindros can shy away. Whether that's due to injury, whether that's due to fear of hurting himself again, or whether that's just something missing. I would opt for something missing. Overrated.
Here's this guy, the biggest, most powerful figure on the rink, who's at the same time the most vulnerable and potentially tragic figure on the rink.
I don't know if I've ever seen a player get so much attention for not playing.
He's never scored 50 goals. He's never won a Stanley Cup. He never had a full season. And yet, this is the second Gretzky. This ain't even the first Lindros.
He is the most overrated, spoiled, demanding athlete of the modern era.
3.
That's Johnson in motion. He's got it. He's gone.
At USC against Northwestern in the Rose Bowl, he was a man among boys.
3.
Keyshawn Johnson caught passes and threw himself compliments. For all the squawk, he did walk the walk in the NFL. He finished his career with over 10,500 receiving yards and 64 touchdowns, yet critics claim something was still missing.
When you listen to Keyshawn talk, he puts himself in the Jerry Rice, Terrell Owens class.
Michael Irvin don't go and tell them I need to be on the football field. They know.
And he is not in that class whatsoever.
Most football players think they're better than they are. He was never a great receiver. I mean, he was a possession receiver his entire career.
Keyshawn's the only 6'3", 210-pound black possession receiver in the history of the National Football League.
Johnson was a great marketer of himself. He wrote a book, Give Me the Damn Ball. When they threw him the damn ball, he would catch it all the time. His mouth was better than his hand.
I don't think Keyshawn's overrated. He still did take Tampa Bay to the Super Bowl. He still did some good things for the New York Jets. He was never a world beater, but he had a good career. He lasted a long time. And he did the stuff that a lot of receivers won't do. I mean, how many people block as well as he does? Keyshawn did that consistently through his career.
I wouldn't say that he's overrated. I think the year where he caught 100 and some balls and only had one touchdown, I think people were saying that Keyshawn was overrated more so than ever in that year.
As a football player, he's certainly overrated.
Terribly overrated. He goes right to the overrated category.
2.
Identify the best college football player? Not possible. But the Heisman voters persist in trying, forgetting that an Eric Crouch and other winners should be judged on what they did, not what they might do in the NFL. As pros, many have been, well, not good.
You walk around the street and ask someone who won the Heisman Trophy last year, I think you'd get a lot of blank stares.
Most people would say overrated. Then why do we give it so much play during the year? Why are we always arguing on TV and on radio shows, and why are fans arguing? Because it's fun.
Look out. Rondé. He needs 23. He's across the 40. Open up the history book.
It deserves everything it gets. The bad thing about it is there's so many Heisman Trophy winning players that won the award that went on to do nothing in the NFL.
I'm sure it's a wonderful award to win, but it doesn't guarantee you anything. And I don't know how much it means to have that trophy when you have pro aspirations.
Voters seem to identify the best quarterback on an undefeated football team and zero in on him, and it's a joke.
We have turned it into a beauty pageant. It's no longer about the most outstanding player in college football. It has now become the most compelling and marketable player on the best team.
I think it's the most overrated thing in sports.
Heisman's a great college award for a college player. Let's leave poor Eric Crouch alone.
The Heisman Trophy does not guarantee anything but that bust.
In sports, the most difficult task that you can ask someone to do is to come up with the answer to who's number 2. You could ask the kid from Jeopardy and he wouldn't have a clue, because most don't care, they don't care to know, which is exactly the reason we came up with the show. So who's number 1?
Welcome back to Who's Number 1? Most Overrated. Let's recap what we've seen so far. It's not good.
120.
Greg Norman.
19.
Nomar Garcia-Parra.
8.
Mike Keenan.
7.
Oscar de la Hoya.
6.
The Golf Poodle.
15.
The Indianapolis 500. Joe Namath.
30.
Mike Holmgren.
Well.
The Ryder Cup.
11.
The Atlanta Braves.
10.
Bill Buckner's era.
9.
Steve Spurrier.
8.
NBA Draft Lottery.
7.
NBA Slam Dunk Contest.
6.
Chris Webber.
5.
Notre Dame football.
4.
Eric Lindros.
3.
Keyshawn Johnson.
2.
The Heisman Trophy.
19 gone, 1 left. The big one. The big number one of the overrated. Right here, right now.
1.
Nowadays, to win in a sport like tennis, you have to be room service, skim milk, 24 hours a day dedicated.
Anna Kournikova, the epitome of the fantasy figure. She fueled the testosterone of males young and old and made a pile of money along the way. Although she was once ranked number 8 in the world, she never won a single WTA singles title in more than 100 tries.
I know she couldn't play tennis. She never won a final of a significant event. That said, for 5 to 6 years, she dominated the imaginations of young men all over the world. How can that be overrated?
I was playing against Kournikova, and a couple of these British boys were yelling, "Hornikova, come on, Hornikova."
She is a breathtakingly beautiful woman. You know, it's hard to get past that when you're a spectator and you're watching her play tennis. It's because she just looks great.
Good looking.
This was lust.
Good looking.
And she ran with it as far as she could run with it and ran right out of tennis. And people said, oh, what a waste. And I think she never looked back because I don't think she really cared about winning tennis tournaments to start with.
It wouldn't matter how I dressed if I wouldn't be playing tennis. Nobody would look at me if I wouldn't be playing tennis. So, of course, I'm playing tennis here.
Anyone who thinks Anna Kournikova was a fraud from the beginning is mistaken.
You don't make the semifinals of Wimbledon as a teenager without having some skill.
You can't do that just because you're blonde and cute. She was the real deal. She had the goods, and she was very hungry to be a great tennis champion. She lost her way a little.
Everybody wants to buy her clothing. Everybody wants to buy her calendars. Wherever she goes, she sells it out. She is an icon.
She was able to become Paris Hilton with the tennis racket. And she got it before we got it.
She's made a boatload of money. And she's what she wants to be, which is very famous, and she's fabulous, and she lives this glamorous lifestyle. She can make the $8 million either on the court or she can make it off the court. No, it's guaranteed versus having to go earn it. What would you do?
The sad part of this whole thing is that somewhere along the line, I would think she'd have to give some thought. Did I reach my potential? And if she really told herself the true side of the story, she never did reach her potential.
In the end, it's a pity that Kournikova couldn't win one stinking tournament. Just one.
She's tennis's answer to Britney Spears. It's very much a 21st century success story without much substance in the middle.
When the hoopla far exceeds the result, when the reality doesn't match the predictions, that's when overrated is created. And once an athlete is labeled overrated, few are able to change that perception. Let's ask those who have more than a passing acquaintance with overrated. Our resident second guessers, Mike Greenberg and Mike Gold. What about ESPN Classics picks, guys?
I'm almost glad that they wound up naming Kournikova number 1 because it gives us the perfect opportunity to rip to shreds not only that selection, but the ridiculous misconception that Anna Kournikova is overrated. The only thing anyone ever said about Anna Kournikova is that she's a fine tennis player,
right,
and she's a great-looking woman.
Absolutely
right. And she is both of those. No one ever said she was better than Steffi Graf or Martina Navratilova or Chris Evert. Anna Kournikova is not overrated. She is exactly what everyone thinks she is.
You know what? And at times, she was a pretty good tennis player. She was never one of the great tennis players, but she was a pretty good tennis player, had a decent career, but that whole thing hanging overhead of never winning, you know, a Grand Slam title, sticking with her. But I will say, having her number one on the list, okay by me, you're always going to have a picture to follow.
That's exactly right. I mean, no cheap shot could possibly be taken more easily than that one is. Notre Dame football.
This is a joke. For Notre Dame football to be anywhere near this list, when you're talking about overrated, look at what this university has done. The number of All-Americans, the number of national championships. Granted, they're struggling now, but in taking it all-encompassing, this is one of the greatest, if not the greatest, football story university of all time. They don't belong anywhere near on this list.
Point of clarification, where did you play your college football?
University of Notre Dame.
If nothing else, for those seasons, they were highly overrated. I got other issues with this list. Bill Buckner's error should be much higher. Bill Buckner's error is one of those legendary moments, but it is overwhelmingly overrated.
We actually agree on this. I absolutely agree with you.
Because people think that the Buckner error cost the Red Sox the World Series. They had already tied the game.
Thank you.
That's one of the most overrated plays in baseball history.
I agree with you wholeheartedly there. This one I'm sure makes you mad, and probably your dad as well. Joe Namath is on the list, my friend.
Now listen, Joe Namath is not overrated in the same way that Anna Kournikova is not overrated. No one says Joe Namath is the greatest quarterback of all time.
When you start listing greatest quarterbacks of all time, it go a long, long way before you get to Namath.
Here's what to say about Joe Namath. Joe Namath came into the American Football League, the AFL, in 1965, and he was asked to make the AFL matter.
Right.
Did he do that?
Absolutely.
All these AFL teams, they were a laughingstock. They were a joke. And when the Jets won Super Bowl III, that is among the most significant individual games in American sports history.
I agree.
And Namath absolutely made an entire league matter. No one says Joe Namath's body of work is among the great quarterbacks of all time, but he is among the most significant players in the history of American sports. He is by no means overrated.
Just another list we disagree with.
So in summation, Anna Kournikova, not overrated.
And we get to see a picture.
And that'll do it for this edition of Who's Number One, clearly underrated. Thanks for joining us for ESPN Classics ranking of the 20 most overrated of all time. We'll continue our series next week, counting down the athletes, the teams, the events that have shaped our world of sport.